This is the Relevant Podcast.
It's episode 1174, and it's the Relevant Podcast here in Orlando. I'm your host, Cameron Strang, and joining me from Loverland, Virginia is Jesse Carey.
Hello, hello.
From Nashville, our managing editor, downtown Emily Brown.
Hey, y'all.
And in LA, we missed him for a couple of episodes. You know, from Social Club Misfits, it's Marty.
Howdy doody.
Closer. One step closer. Hey,
I'm dead inside.
Cameron, I'll let you tell us what we have on the show today. Then I have a question for you and
It's
Marty.
a big show, so yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Oh, you want me to tell it for now? Okay.
We have Rainn Wilson on the show today.
No, more interesting than Rainn Wilson on the show today.
Have we ever had, by the way, Rainn?
Cover of the magazine. Rainn Wilson was on the cover of the magazine. He's been on the podcast 2 or 3 times.
Nice.
Anyway, we have a conversation with Carl Lentz coming up.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
When you guys downloaded this episode, I'm guessing it said 3.5 hours, and you might have been confused. That's why a conversation with Carl is coming up. We get into it. So
He's got a new pod out.
Has he been in New York since? So many questions I have for him.
he's been there all week because he did Dateline NBC. He did the Breakfast Club. It aired today, the day we're recording. He did the Breakfast Club with his wife, and then he's doing the Relevant Podcast. So that's his media tour: Dateline, Breakfast Club, Relevant Podcast.
That's a typical tour, so it makes sense.
All of those, I like all of those outlets, but the one that is, and obviously Carl's a great speaker. He's got a good story to tell. The confusing one to me is Dateline. Did he witness a murder? And is he telling what he saw in some grisly suburban crime scene?
Dateline
because
NBC.
I thought that's what Dateline was now. It's just like it's those
Missing
like
persons.
it's those grimy true crime pods, but with like Keith Morrison. Well, and that's where the story took a turn that no one saw, cutting through the noise. And then it's like, he cut her throat right there. And it's like, sick, Morrison. Why are you doing these puns? Like,
They always do the puns. Big puns.
Yeah. And it wouldn't think that the businessman would take a stab at a fortune that everyone knew he would get. And then it's like, no, he stabbed his business partner and tried to take the business. Like,
He took a shot at success with a 9mm. What the
shot
heck is going on here? Yeah. With an AK-47.
You're
What
like,
in the world?
God, Keith Morrison, this is real people. Like, what is your problem? But I guess, good for, them branching out in their content.
They're catching predators. They're telling you about true crime murders, and they're talking about Carl Lentz's journey over the last 3 years. So, there you go.
Now, before we get to that, we have a lot of great content. But Cameron's wearing a hat today for people. I don't know.
I
if
wear
they're
a hat every day, but
well, he's wearing one right now. That
This is a
says
special one.
that says God's silliest goose. And as soon as we signed on, Marty said, "My wife recently got me that hat as well." Here's the problem.
Did you get on Temu as well, Cam?
I didn't get it on Temu. I got it off TikTok Shop. I saw it on TikTok.
Okay, TikTok is great too. TikTok Shop is great too.
Well, here's the problem. The hat can only be worn by one person at a time. There's an old episode of Seinfeld where Jerry gets his father a world's number one dad shirt, and another guy shows up in a world's number one dad shirt, and they have a dispute because the nature of the shirt, there can only be one number one. There can only be one
That's it.
silliest goose by God's standards. So Cameron or Marty, only one of you get to wear that hat. Emily and I will decide by the end of this pod who gets to wear the hat.
Yeah. So put on your A game.
I'll text Marty before every show, like, silly, and then we'll just decide who can wear it. Yeah.
Feeling silly today.
I actually love this hat because it's so stupid, and wearing it in public is my greatest joy because
that's awesome.
People like comment, but they don't know if you're like mocking Christianity or if you're a Christian. So like, it's really funny. I love it. Check out my
profile for years, and I love it. I think it's the funniest thing in the world. God's silliest goose.
I was at a thrift store one time, and I saw a shirt that said "hoof," and then under it said "arted." And neither of those, like, it's not even that much of a pun because, like, it doesn't, like, independently, you would not use hoof, and arted is not a word. It's just like.
Neither is hoof.
Yeah.
Well, I guess,
exactly.
no. I guess.
But like an animal.
Yeah.
But arted is like, oh, look at that wall that got painted. You could say someone arted it, I guess, but it's not technically a word. But I just appreciated, one, that it was donated, obviously, but I feel like your hat is sort of the religious equivalent of a hoof arted shirt. Like, we just don't know how to take it. It just poses more questions than it does answers. You know,
I've had many conversations wearing. I got a Toby Nwigwe shirt a while back. It said, "Try Jesus, don't try me." It's his lyric, you know, and I've had sincere old ladies come up to me, like, "Yes, brother, try Jesus." Wait, what does "don't try me" mean? And I'm like, so it's this rapper, and then they just like look petrified that they didn't understand. Anyway, yeah. So this is my new "Try Jesus, don't try me" hat.
It is funny. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, there's only like one. It's a sweatshirt, but there's only one piece of clothing I have that I've had people come up and comment on, and it is also about Jesus. But
what does it say?
So it does say.
Why does it take us so long to get to that answer? Well,
it says if Jesus can come back from the dead, so can One Direction. Yeah. I have had so many people come up to me and talk about it, like, and I'm even grown men who are like, love that shirt, and I'm like, do you know who One Direction is? Like, it's very funny, but that's
amazing.
It is also a slightly religious tee that people. Yeah, they need to share their thoughts on.
Love that idea.
It's share the gospel at all times when necessary. Use words.
Amen, brother.
When you can, use an ironic T-shirt or a slightly irreverent hat. By the way, I just Googled. Don't worry, you can totally buy hoof arted shirts on Amazon. It seems like
new merch just dropped.
Whoever owns the trademark on that seems to be doing well. There's all kinds of merch out there.
Stay tuned. Up next, it's Slices. You're listening to Dominic Fike. The song is Mrs. Well, today's show is brought to you in part by The Grace Project, a compelling new novel by author Kyle Bullock. The story uncovers the details of a violent crime tied to a small-town church and the four members at the center of it all. Their lives collide as they confront weighty issues like racial equality, political divide, and LGBTQ inclusion through the lens of biblical grace. The Grace Project is perfect for individuals or small groups and is available now on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, or download on Audible. Okay, it's time for Slices. What do you have, Jesse?
All right, so this has been quite an emotional roller coaster of a week for me, and a lot of fans of just American greatness.
I didn't know you were bringing this, but I know exactly what you're bringing based on that one sentence. So, as I watched it play out over the week, I was wondering, how's Jesse doing as I saw the headlines progress?
Because we're at a time in American culture where us as the American people have very few just heroes out there, like we all grew up in an era where, Neil Armstrong, Lance Armstrong, we got Caitlin Clark, we had Michael Jordan, but true American greatness and dominance, And I feel like one of the last truly dominant athletes, and this is an athlete. I'm not going to go on about why this individual qualifies as an athlete, but truly one of the country's last most dominant athletes.
Michael Phelps.
We had Tom
Brady.
If you put peak Michael Phelps, peak like Michael Lewis
steroid era of Mark McGuire.
If you put Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco like into like both Williams sisters,
Bonds,
I'm talking
Serena,
Tiger Woods,
Lance Armstrong, Tiger Woods.
It's just dominating people of that
domination.
Domination's the game right here.
I'm talking like no one comes close. They're just beating everyone.
Right.
He belongs in that pantheon. Of course, I'm talking about Joey Chestnut, who every year he's one of the world's greatest competitive eaters, and every year he wins the Coney Island Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest. Right. He doesn't just win it. I mean, he destroys the competition. I watch it every year. Okay, it is really fun.
It's your July 4th like go to.
I know. I never miss it, and like it's complete domination. No one comes close. It's hard to like even come up with an equivalent from another sport.
Well. He started in 2007, and he's won 16 of his 17 years. Yeah. And he had a rival who was the dominant before him, and they overlapped a little bit. Right?
Yes.
Kobayashi?
Kobayashi. Yeah. Now, Kobayashi is a Japanese competitive eater, and I've watched several documentaries about him. The crazy thing about Kobayashi, like Joey Chestnut looks like the guy.
Hold on. There's many documentaries about him.
Yeah, dude, he's a legend.
He's what? Like him and Ohtani,
Kobayashi. That's it.
Him and Shohei Ohtani are like the most popular people in Japan. Like in terms of athletes, it's Ohtani and Kobayashi. Props to Ohtani, by the way. He's having a great season. Anyway, he's
baseball.
He's the best player in Major League Baseball. He's the only. He pitches and is a slugger. No one ever does. No, he's like the best at both. He's like the next Babe Ruth. He's unbelievable. Anyway,
he's the best gambler.
Well, his translator.
Oh, the gambling guy. I heard about that on NPR.
Okay, all right, his assistant was a gambling guy.
Yeah, but either way,
17 million.
Yeah, but either way, Kobayashi hasn't been able to compete in Nathan's famous hot dog contest for quite a number of years because Nathan's evidently is pretty strict with their contracts. Like they don't want these eaters to have contract with other like food brands or even sometimes other competitive eating outlets. And this is a big problem because Joey Chestnut just signed on to be the face of Impossible Foods, who are now making vegan hot dogs, which, hey, good for him, man. The guy's got to get paid, right? I mean, I don't think there's a ton of
insurance.
I don't think there's a ton of sponsorship opportunities in the world of competitive eating.
That's about it.
But the point I was to make about Kobayashi, this guy's in the weight room every day. Like you should see this guy. He treats competitive eating like athleticism. Like he eats tons of noodles to like stretch the capacity of his stomach, but he's also like a weightlifter and he's jacked and does it like, and then Joey Chestnut doesn't look like a competitive eater either. He looks like a guy who works at Home Depot. Yeah, exactly. Like real blue collar man of the people. Either way, because Joey Chestnut signed this deal with Impossible Foods, it came out earlier this week that he was not going to be able to compete in this year's hot dog contest. And I was devastated. It ruins it. Like, who cares at this point? It's like when Michael Jordan went to go play baseball. It's like, well, you know what I mean? Like he's walking away in his prime. He's going to leave championships on the table. Well, good news, everyone. Netflix has stepped up to the plate and has announced that they're going to do their own competition, not on the 4th of July, not to compete, but on Labor Day weekend. Chestnut versus Kobayashi. Unfinished beef. Now, unfortunately,
if a pun wasn't involved, I wouldn't be interested. But they landed that pun. That's good.
And I got to be honest.
That's Nightline level. That's Nightline level pun.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Dateline.
I got to be honest though.
Whatever. Wait, did I say Dateline earlier? He was on Nightline. Not Dateline. I said Nightline.
Yeah. The Dateline's the murder show. That's why we were like, wow, this is weird.
Did I say Dateline? No, he was on Nightline. Nightline. Yeah. That's who interviewed him. Not Dateline.
Dateline is pretty dark.
That makes so much more sense.
Keep this in there. Keep this in there.
That makes so much more sense. That makes so much more sense.
I was wondering. I was like, I haven't watched.
Confusing why.
I haven't watched Nightline in ever, so I was like, well, maybe they went for the more tabloid, sensational segments. I don't know. I didn't know.
No, that checks out. The Dateline, I was curious about their angle. I literally thought there's an unrelated thing that Carl witnessed the murder, and he was unrelated to the podcast.
Sorry, Carl.
But anyway, but here's the thing about Kobayashi, a chestnut unfinished beef. I get it's a decent pun, but I was a little upset because I took it literally when I first saw it. I was like, wait, not only are they competing, but they won't be eating hot dogs. They're going to be eating raw beef. That would have been a much better competition. But either way, I'm excited that they are going to be able, to compete once again and see who truly holds the crown. So it's going to be Labor Day weekend on Netflix. Good job, Netflix. You're saving a great American institution with a great American athlete, even though you tricked many of us at first reading to think that not only would they be competing, but they would be eating raw beef. But thank you. We're excited to watch.
Is it because Nathan sponsors the New York competition? Is that why?
Coney Island.
Nathan started doing it as a way to drum up advertising and business for Nathan's. It's a Nathan's thing.
Yeah, I mean, he should know better. Truthfully, he should know better, Joey, than to go with the competition. But he knew what he was doing.
He's got 16 wins. I think he's fine.
You know what? They probably were like, listen, we have Netflix in the bag. Go with us. Come over here to the dark side.
Nathan's needs Joey more than Joey needs Netflix. That's just how it is. You know,
now the competition's like... Yeah, now it's like the All-Star game with no All-Star players. We're just seeing random people eat hot dogs. That's
my thing is like, who cares? Right. I don't care about Nathan's anymore.
Good? Yeah, who's that good? Now they're going to have real food competition, because usually they have like two people who eat like 3 hot dogs, and then they have like serious competitors.
That's the thing. I feel like whoever wins this year's Nathan's contest, like it's not going to mean as much because it's like, well, you didn't beat Joey. You need to beat
Joey.
You beat Joe. Who cares? Anyways, we're thrilled for you, Jesse. I'm glad that your week turned around.
It was surreal. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of like pacing around the neighborhood, a lot of
just looking out the window,
a lot of thoughts and prayers,
just rolling around hot dogs on the grill, just thinking,
But now the question is, what do you do on July 4th? Are you going to boycott Nathan's because there's no Joey and you don't care?
I'll still have it on in the background, because
you just won't care anymore. It's like watching a golf tournament with no Tiger Woods. It's just not that
sure. I'll have it on, but like, man, it would be more fun if I'm not gonna I don't feel like anyone necessarily in the right or wrong. Business is business,
Right.
And if there's probably the most cutthroat business in America is the hot dog business. We all know that. And so
clearly.
Do we know that?
And
telecom, old school railroads, hot dogs. That's the
trifecta.
Con Edison.
The industries that built America. The Industrial Revolution. We wouldn't have half of the innovations we have if it wasn't for cutthroat hot dog barons of the 1920s. This is common knowledge.
Yeah.
So either way, business is business. And I will still watch.
All right. What do you have, Marty?
All right, guys. What's going on? All right. So have any of you been blocked by a celebrity on Twitter, X, Instagram? Jesse, I don't think you have any of those things. I feel like I saw your Instagram account and it just you have a profile picture and no posts with many followers. Emily or Cam, have you guys been blocked by anybody?
Not to my knowledge. I'm
aware of. Yeah.
I mean, I've been blocked by, I feel like, I guess because I've been blocked by so many people, I thought it was just normal. I mean, I've been blocked by Desiring God. Shout out to John Pipe.
But you call these people out, you tag them, and then they're like, oh, this is negative. We'll block this guy so he can't tag us anymore.
I'm never mean about it. Like, I think the last time
you just crack jokes. It's funny.
Yeah. So I think the last time I got blocked by Desiring God was like one of the greatest questions. It was like around Christmas time, like one of the greatest questions of our generation. Find out like what it was, like a clickbait article. And I think I quoted it and I was like, the answer is, was it 5'2" or Fine 2? Talking about the Lloyd song with Lil Wayne, where he's like, where at one point that was like a debate, like is she 5'2" or is she Fine 2? No one really knows, like questioning the lyrics. So they blocked me on that. Elevation Worship, I don't know what happened. I don't know how they blocked me on that. But anyway,
What's you say to Elevation Worship? They're friends of the show.
I have no idea. I don't know.
What if they stop coming on the show because you're associated with us now?
Was it like an offhanded verdict joke? Did he seems like a blocker to me.
I think it was something that has to do with Coldplay. I'm not 100% sure on it. But I remember looking at it at the Dove Awards while they were hosting, and I was like, oh man, and I have video of it. But all right, so an article, that's neither here or there, but an article has come out on Reddit, actually a viral Reddit post about people's stories of being blocked, and I got a couple of them that I wanted to share with y'all. Here's one. A friend of the show, Kel Mitchell, right? He was on the show recently. He's having a great year. So the article says, I ordered a signed poster from Kel Mitchell for my friend's birthday. I wanted it to say, I will always be your orange soda. Love, Kel. And I received from Mr. Orange Soda himself, Kel, which is probably he knew what he was doing. I contacted him via the website. His agent sent me a message and said, Mr. Mitchell was highly offended by the message and to either keep it or to send it back for a refund. So I printed out the email, which is a very Cam thing to do. I printed out the email, put it in a poster, told my buddy I offended Kel Mitchell for his birthday, and it still hangs in his living room. Feels like a very Cameron-esque story right there. Here's another one. Yeah, you would do that. You would 100% take the email, frame it for a friend, post it, and it'd be a funny joke that we'd always be like, "That's hilarious."
I'll tell you, I did do something like that. I got kicked out of a Magic game by a ref named Ben Taylor. I got kicked out, and literally like 4 days later, he got demoted because it came out that he was just overreacting and he was kicking out players and all this stuff. And so they demoted him. And there was this big tweet that had his face and it said demoted real huge. And then the tweet talked about how he got demoted. I printed out that. I didn't print it out. I saved that tweet, sent it to a t-shirt printing company, made t-shirts of the demoted tweet and wore it under my hoodie to every Magic game for the rest of the season, hoping that I would see him and then I could show him.
You would have went crazy. I would have wore it without the hoodie. I
never saw him again. Unfortunately, he was banned for the rest of the season.
He got really demoted.
Yeah,
dang,
so
that's amazing.
But similar sentiment, I'll print this. I'll put it on the wall.
Witty. You're preparing. It's like you're the secret assassin. I get it. It's smart. All right, here's another one. One of our friends of the show, O.J. Simpson. I got blocked by. Just kidding. I got blocked on Twitter by O.J. Simpson in 2020 for asking if he plans on purchasing the new Bronco in white when it's released, which I feel like is a hilarious joke, and he should have somehow figured out some sponsorship. Here's the last one.
Hang on. I gotta say, I don't know why he was offended by that, because didn't he come up with a book that was like, if I did it?
He seemed to make more inappropriate jokes about his salacious past than anyone. So it's shocking that he passed recently, but is so thin-skinned. Anyway,
on Dateline, he didn't he do that thing where he like opened the door on the host and then he had like a knife and he was like
he literally did that.
It's like the original Dateline when they would actually do more than just murders, but I mean he was murderer. But my favorite part of that Dateline, to get off subject, was when they're walking down Venice Beach and he's just strolling. I mean, he's huge. He's O.J. Simpson, and as he's walking, this woman walks up to him and goes, "Can I shake your hand?" And he goes, "Absolutely." He shakes her hand. She goes, "I've never shaken hands with the murderer," and she walks away. One of the best live moments of live television I've ever seen. Area. Last and final one. This is a good one. When the Mars rover played a Black Eyed Peas song on Mars, I tweeted, "Great. Now the Martians will definitely be hostile." And then I got blocked by will.i.am.
That's great.
I didn't even mention him. I didn't mention him at all. So I'm kind of a loss on how he saw it. And that's, I think,
because he's got a Google alert for if anybody says Black Eyed Peas.
It's
hey,
very
everybody,
true.
We're still relevant. Yeah.
I love how like people who have made it and have arrived, and have wealth, fame, notoriety.
They got it all.
They tend to be the most, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but in my experience, some of the most sensitive, like no fun. Yeah. Nickelback, Kevin Durant, the list goes on.
Wait, Jesse, weren't you blocked by Nickelback?
I wasn't blocked by, I probably was, but they were publicly saying, they were saying things about me that were untrue. At one point they said I was embezzling the donation somehow, and that charity water had to disown me and was concerned about where this money was going. Like, it was like, guys.
They put misinformation out there.
Yeah. But either way,
the question question shouldn't have been, have you ever been blocked by a celebrity? Have you ever been lied about by a celebrity?
Have you been accused of fraud by a celebrity? No, but the point stands. It's like, guys, we're making a joke, okay? Like, lighten up. They're super. So these people who are super successful and, have nothing to prove to anyone. Like, the numbers don't lie. These people sell a lot of albums. They make a lot of money playing sports. They do this and that. Like, who cares? They got it all. A goof, man.
They got it all. But when they see you on Twitter, it gets them really upset.
Yeah.
I wonder what you said to make Elevation Worship block you, because you finding out because you were just on your phone at the Dove Awards and they were on stage and you're like, what's their deal? Let me look them up on Instagram and find out they've blocked you. Is so funny to me. I've also
been blocked by a couple senators, we were talking to Emily about this, but I've been blocked by a couple senators too. And there was like a rule that if you're a public servant, you couldn't block people. So they had to unblock me, which I thought was pretty awesome. But now I have less material because all the likes on X are hidden. So I always use that material against my local congressman.
Isn't that crazy that he said literally the reason why he disabled the ability to see what other people are commenting is that he wanted people to feel free to engage more fringe content on the platform. And so he wanted them to engage more conspiratorial or maybe porn or whatever and like it and feel free to do that. Yeah. He wanted people to not feel shame by engaging that stuff. So that's what he's wanting to promote. So,
wow.
What I thought was really funny is a lot of people were like lamenting that you can't see other people's likes because they were like, how will I be able to see what? And I don't know. I just saw so many tweets about it that I started thinking, how many people are going through people's life? Like, I didn't realize that was a big thing.
I think it's a thing.
There was a new situation actually last week where Vince from AC/DC, it went viral. Like on TikTok, it was like, don't go through his likes because apparently like he had the worst things in his likes. And that just happened last week. And then they stopped it. So he really missed it by a week, which really is a shame. But
or do you think
I always wonder what he had? Like, what was it? What was there that he wasn't like? People were like, you got to see this thing.
Maybe AC/DC. Maybe Elon's a big AC/DC fan, and he's like, "Yo, my favorite band's
the dominoes fell."
Yeah, I gotta prevent this from happening in the future. Yeah,
I get people do it for like celebrities, or whatever. Which I mean, it always ends up being awkward or funny. But the way people were talking about it was like they were going through like their friends' likes or just like not famous people's likes, which I was like, that feels weird.
Yeah, but because the like is like the perfect like passive aggressive. Like I'm not saying it, but I'm glad someone else. It was like even this week it was like JD Vance, who's a controversial lawmaker, who is evidently is on the short list to be Trump's like vice presidential candidate. And I saw a headline like JD Vance previously liked a comment about Trump being a rapist or something. And it's like, back in the day, or a sports, an athlete liking a comment from a commentator about another athlete, like talking like, it's like, I didn't say it. I just like that Stephen A called out LeBron and I'm Curry. You know what I mean? Like, it was a way to kind of passive aggressively.
It even got to the point where people on their profiles would put likes are not endorsements or retweets are not, because people would be like, wow, if you like it, that says a lot,
It means you 100% agree with it.
Yeah. Now I guess the idea of just liking something is just the pitfall.
Yep. All right. Well, Emily, we've run out of time. We have other things to get to on this show, so you are off the hook for bringing the slice today.
She's like, I didn't have one. Oh my god!
I was going to rant about dating apps, but we can save that for another week.
All right, that'll do it for slices. Okay, normally now up next would be our guest. But because we're doing a different approach this week, our talk with Carl will be at the end of the show. So stay tuned. Right now, up next, it's Would You Rather? You're listening to Gus Dapperton. The song is Everything She Wants. Well, today's show is brought to you in part by World Vision. We all subscribe to a lot of services that make our lives easier and more entertaining. But as followers of Jesus, we should want to seek first the kingdom of God in all areas of life, including our spending. That's why I'm so excited about a new kind of subscription through World Vision. Not one for myself, but for others. It's called Believers for World Change. And when you sign up, you're joining a community of change makers working to help end extreme poverty around the world and here at home. World Vision is a Christian humanitarian organization that works with children, families, and communities to reach their God-given potential, focusing on things like gender equality, spiritual nurture, and access to clean water, education, job training, and healthcare, so the entire picture of poverty can be addressed. Let's subscribe to something new together. Subscribe to World Change today at worldvision.org. Again, that's worldvision.org. Okay, it is time for a round of Would You Rather? Would you rather? There's no points on this one. This is just a friends talking about
no
things.
likes.
Great.
Yeah. Can't see them.
Can't see the likes.
Free swim. Yep. Gotcha.
Marty, you're up first. Here we go. Would you rather give up all social media for a year or give up all television, including streaming, for a year? Social media.
I would
or
100% give up social media for sure. I would love to do that. Right? Who wouldn't want to do that?
Here's the thing, though, like, because I do kind of want to push back on this. Your work, like, you promote it on social media, so like
he could have somebody else do it.
Yeah. Well, the thing about social media is that it's just a black hole of I always want to know what's going on, and TikTok and especially Instagram Reels has made it so easy just to swipe through. They're getting better at like knowing what you like, and so it could be 3 hours. I'll be stuck there. So
that's valid.
Emily, would you rather never be able to drink coffee again or never be able to drink soda again?
Oh, that's really hard because I do love Dr. Pepper, but I am a different person before and after coffee. So I think for the sake of humanity, I need to keep coffee in my life.
Can attest. I agree. Good answer. Jesse, would you rather have an unlimited supply of your favorite food but never be able to eat anything else, or have a variety of foods but never get to eat your favorite food again? Ooh.
Give me variety. I don't really have a
specifics here.
Yeah, a hard and fast favorite. Give me variety all day.
See, I was wondering what your favorite was. I was going to assume maybe like nachos because I know you talk about them.
I do. Tacos and nachos are a huge staple of my diet. But
what if you could never
forever?
I could do it. I could do it if there were other good variety. You know,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm adaptable.
He's adapting.
He'll find his new nacho. You know, his new favorite.
Exactly.
All of a sudden, he falls in love with like loaded potato skins. You know, like boom, that's his new nacho
with Impossible hot dogs. He loves them.
Yeah.
All right, let's see, Marty. Would you rather always be slightly too hot or slightly too cold?
I'd rather be slightly too cold. Hot is rough, man. Hot is a rough thing to do. To be hot all the time.
I agree. You can always put on more layers. You can't.
Yeah, I would always put like a hoodie on and just at least be like this.
You can't take off too many clothes, so.
It's true. All
right, Emily, would you rather be a genius in a world of average people or be average in a world of geniuses?
I feel like you're already a genius.
You're the smartest person in the world.
Tortured poet society.
But think about it. Like if everybody's genius, then the world's a better place. There's more innovation. There's more whatever. So your life would probably be better if everybody was smarter, right?
Yeah, but if I'm a genius in a world of average people,
you could run the world.
You're already in the world of average people, so just factor that in. Just kidding.
You're talking like an idiocracy scenario, right? I mean, this is basically the plot of Idiocracy.
I don't know what that is.
I haven't seen that movie. I'm so sorry.
It's a movie where Luke,
where Luke Wilson is frozen, like as part of and he's asleep for like
that was Encino Man.
No. And he wakes up a few decades in the future. And because of, it's actually a very prescient movie.
It's really sad, actually.
A celebrity played by Terry Crews has taken over the White House. All of America is dumbed down because of the media and junk food. It's like I said, it's very.
They don't drink water.
When was this movie made?
Watching it today is like, oh my gosh, the Idiocracy called a lot. But he wakes up and like the average person from like 30 years ago is now the smartest person in America. Anyway, go ahead.
All that to say, I think I would like to be a genius. I'm an Enneagram 5. I just like to know things. I think it's like deep in my soul. I have to be the smartest person in the room. I'm not always, but I would like to.
Again, can attest. All right, Jesse, would you rather have to work 80 hours a week, but be able to retire in 10 years, or work 40 hours a week until you're 65?
I'd be done in 10 years. I mean, it's not that different than I do now.
But these are the best 10 years of your life. Your kids' ages, working 80 hours, you wouldn't be able to do any of those kids' things? You would give that up?
I would find a way. I'd find a way. 10 years.
Working 80 hours a week.
Yeah, I take it. I mean, it's not that different than my week now, to be honest with you. No, I would take it and be done in 10. Yeah, I could. Yeah, I could still make things happen.
Honestly, by then your kids will be in their like 20s. You can have a lot of fun with them.
Yeah,
exactly. And you could be free. Yeah, you're free.
Yeah.
Marty, would you rather have a unibrow that you can't pluck or shave, or have no eyebrows at all?
I'd rather have that unibrow. I'd rather be like that one basketball player. What's his name?
Anthony Davis.
That's it. Pull an Anthony Davis on him.
Just own it. You just own it.
I don't want to do like Lex Luthor situation with no, like Whoopi Goldberg. Like I don't have an expressive face like her where I can have no eyebrows.
Does Whoopi Goldberg not have eyebrows?
She has no eyebrows. Yeah, she's never had eyebrows. Not even in Sister Act 2.
You have very sweaty eyes. Yeah.
That's how expressive her face is.
What?
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, you've never Google it. She's never had eyebrows. Look at Ghost.
This sounds like the sort of thing that the internet just made up and you believe, and like it's not actually true.
You know, I always come with the facts.
But here's the thing: this is extremely verifiable. Like this is something like I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, Photoshop doesn't exist.
She doesn't have eyebrows. Whoa, I've never noticed that.
Yeah, I noticed it I was watching it on Sister Act 2 years ago, and I was like, why should no eyebrows? And then I started saying, you got no eyebrows, like Whoopi Goldberg.
And then she blocked you on Twitter?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
She really never did.
Emily, would you rather always be 10 minutes late or always 20 minutes early?
20 minutes early. It stresses me out if I'm late, even though I
agree with you on that one. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, who would want to be late? I mean, I get that people are naturally late, but I don't think they would want that. Anyway, Jesse, would you rather have to take a cold shower every day or always sleep an hour less than you need to be fully rested?
I take the cold shower. I got to get my sleep. I got to get my Z's.
100%.
You know?
On your 80 hours of work.
Yeah, it's tiring.
Exactly. Cold shower wakes you right up.
Marty, would you rather be best friends with Joey Tribbiani from Friends or Kramer from Seinfeld?
Oof, I think I'd be a Kramer. If I was single, I'd be Joey's friend. But now that I'm married, and I feel like he'd get me into some great situations. It's got a new book, by the way, Michael Richards.
Hijinks. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
His entire media tour, he just looks sad. I get that he's playing up the somber remorse thing, but it's like, dude, like this interview is a downer.
Comb your hair. Do a hairbrush. Put a hairbrush, run a comb through that hair.
Yeah.
Emily, would you rather have all your favorite TV shows turn into musicals or all your favorite movies turn into reality TV shows?
Wow, this is a really great question.
Hunger Games.
I honestly think I would do TV shows turn into musicals because I love a good musical. Obviously, no surprise here. I loved Glee. So I think I could really do a musical TV show.
You were the target demographic for Glee.
Yeah, I was a Gleek for sure.
Yeah.
Gleek.
Jesse, would you rather always have to sing instead of speak or dance everywhere you go?
I'd take dance. Either way.
Without
the
question.
money I would pay to have to see you have to dance and
have you ever seen
at the DMV at the grocery store and you have to dance.
Well, because
pick up your kid from school, you have to dance.
Just wait in line.
Because I'm thinking about professional,
wait in line at the grocery
professional scenarios. I could be sitting. I could just wheel myself in.
But you have to dance in and out of the meeting.
Yeah, but at least in the Zoom era, I don't have to sing. What if I get in legal trouble? Okay. I can't be singing in the courtroom, but if I dance up to the jury box, people are like, that guy's innocent. Like no guilty person dances to the shoes. That's someone who's free as a bird. Like he did not do it. Look, he's dancing into the witness stand.
Have you guys ever seen the YouTube?
I don't know why my mind went to crime, but go ahead.
I was like, he's thinking about this scenario. Yeah.
There's a really great skit that Kyle Mooney did with Beck Bennett when they were in like a comedy troupe together. It's on YouTube, but they did this exact scenario where it was like a serious thing, like business boardroom meeting, but everyone's dancing the entire time without any explanation. And it's like a drama, but everyone's just like moving and dancing. It's so funny. I'll have to send it to y'all later, but I mean, it's this exact scenario. And I think you picked right, Jesse.
Good. All right, this is the flash round. We only got like 1 minute left. Here we go. Marty, would you rather have a constant itch or a constant hiccup?
Hiccup.
Yeah, but that's the right choice. That's the right choice.
Emily,
it is.
Emily, would you rather be a giant hamster or a tiny rhino?
Oh, giant hamster.
Yeah, 100%. For sure.
That'd be terrifying.
Havoc. I love that.
Excellent.
Great choice.
Yeah. All right, last one. Here we go. Jesse, would you rather have to shout everything you say or whisper everything you say?
I'd shout. I basically do that now. So
what if you're in court and you're screaming and you're going to be held in contempt of court?
And shouting.
I didn't do it. You know?
Plus you're dancing.
I'm dancing and screaming. I just look like a lunatic everywhere.
You would get sent to a psych ward, but you would not get sent to jail.
Yeah, I look like a fun lunatic.
But how weird would it be if you were whispering and dancing?
If I was whispering,
it's creepier. It's creepy.
Yeah, it's like, well, that guy's definitely a serial killer. He's whispering and dancing. That's like a nightmare. That's nightmare zone stuff.
Yeah. This is a Nightline stuff, right?
Then he took a stab at those complicated dance steps.
Yeah.
All
he
right.
stepped on his competition.
All right, that'll do it for Would You Rather. Stay tuned. Up next, it's my unedited conversation with Carl Lentz. You're listening to David Hale. The song is Never Want to Let Go. Well, today's episode is brought to you in part by American Prophet. What would God say through a prophet today? In the speculative new fiction book, American Prophet, Peter has dreams of major events that keep coming true. Heralded as a modern-day prophet, he also attracts conspiracy theories and violent threats. Forced to the open road, Peter strives to remain true to his calling as he drives deep into the heart of a divided nation. Download your copy of American Prophet today. Hey, if you like this podcast, but you might like it better if there were no ads, you can do that. Head over to relevantmagazine.com and sign up for Relevant Plus. For just a couple bucks a month, you get this podcast ad-free. You get ad-free unlimited reading at relevantmagazine.com, including the full podcast and magazine archives, our beautifully designed digital issue, and a little more. Check out all the info right there on the Relevant Plus tab at relevantmagazine.com. Well, Carl Lentz is the former lead pastor of Hillsong, New York. If you are listening to this podcast, you know his story pretty well. He was part of a movement that exploded in New York, exploded in national exposure, and essentially came crashing down in 2020 when he was caught in a scandal that you can look up if you don't know the details. Well, he went away. He dropped off the face of the earth for about 4 years. He did rehabs, therapy, got a normal job, worked on his family, worked on his healing, and kept himself out of the limelight. Well, recently he decided with his wife Laura to launch a podcast called Lights On with Carl Lentz, where I think right now they're 3 episodes in, and they've been very transparently talking about their story, their journey, what's happened, where they are now, where they're going. It's well worth a listen if you haven't yet, but I'm sure a lot of you have. A lot of people don't know it, but Carl and I have been friends for 15 years now, since before Hillsong New York even started. I met him because we started arguing about basketball when the Orlando Magic were good in the Dwight Howard era, and he was just talking smack to me online, and I wanted none of his foolishness. So that's how he and I met, and then a couple years later, he and Joel Houston started Hillsong New York, and we became friends over the years. And I've seen him through the highs and lows. I've known him, and frankly, and I didn't talk about this at all, but I've remained close to him over the last 4 years. He lived here in Florida for over 2 years, and we saw each other regularly during that period. But more than that, we talked often about the good, bad, and the ugly, about what he and the family were going through, what they were doing, how they were doing, and all of it. I didn't share any of that publicly, but that's the truth. And that's the context for the conversation you're about to hear. So he's done a couple of interviews over the last couple of weeks, talking about the new podcast. I think he, like I mentioned earlier, he did Nightline and the Breakfast Club, and now he's talking to us. We talked for about an hour, which, like I said, explains the long episode time. If you're interested, it's well worth the listen. I tried to cover things that the other interviews, the 10-minute interviews, 5-minute interviews didn't cover. Try to get into the journey leading up to what happened, what really happened in the years after what happened, where they are now and where they're going. It's well worth the listen. Here's my conversation, unedited conversation with Carl Lentz. So, how has it been having to talk about all this publicly and relive a lot of this stuff in the last few weeks?
Good question. I think it's been mixed, and on one hand, it's been really freeing and feels good because we're able to speak, really honestly and truthfully about stuff that hasn't had any light. So that's been cool. Definitely, me and Laura both realized that we've healed a lot because we haven't thought about some of that pain on that degree in a long time. So it has been a little bit hard as well. So I'm looking forward to maybe getting a little bit of conditioning to my soul so I can keep on talking about this because I know it's going to be a part of our lives. And yeah, so it's been but way more freeing and feeling better than it does anything else. It's just as new again to be talking about your worst stuff every day. It's like, all right, I wouldn't have picked this story. I wouldn't have picked this angle for my own life, but God knows. So I gotta do what's in front of me,
And it's a long time ago. I mean, it feels like me, like I was talking to a friend the other day, that it feels like the last 4 years is like 5 months, but it's been 4 or 5 years. I mean, that's a long time. I actually am interested, like, obviously everybody saw the headlines and I'm not going to get into like what happened. That's been told. I'm interested to know the journey up until that moment for you, the whirlwind of life and launching Hillsong. And, like, when did you start feeling that you were unhealthy? When did you start feeling things were off track?
That's a great question. And I don't know if you're going to make space for this on your own podcast, but I am really grateful for you. You've been a faithful friend to me, and we've known each other for a really long time. And we started fighting about basketball when I was in Oklahoma at a youth conference to this day. And you have been a really faithful friend. So I am grateful I can publicly thank you for never running from some of the hard times. And there were some really, really tough ones when I was in your proximity early on, and you were really kind. So thank you. I appreciate you as my friend and brother. I think I've thought about this so much lately, talking it through with Laura, because people ask questions like, could this have been prevented? What led to it? And there's fancy answers for all that. And then there's like, the reality is you don't know what you don't know. So I can look back now and see warning signs and see things that are not healthy. But back then I didn't know. And a lot of it was just the way we do things. So I think in general, Cam, I would have like cut 90% of the stuff we were doing and just done 10%. From the moment we landed in New York, it was just
what do you mean? Like 90% of what?
We're mid-30s, small family, trying to attack this phenomenal city, and everything explodes. So everything around you, everything's expedited. It's moving faster. And I think I would have just gone at a really slow pace and made sure that my soul continued to grow with the growth. Someone asked me recently, did fame, platform, did it change you? And my answer is always not enough. It didn't change me enough. It should have. I think we should all mature and grow. And I was doing the same thing in New York that I was doing in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Same access, same availability, same everything. And it just eventually, I look back on it now and I'm like, the beginning of the end was the beginning. It's like I didn't start in a place where I knew some of the stuff we know now. So I don't look back with regret because I think it's a wasted emotion, but I do look back and go, what can I help somebody else with that's going to be in that same spot? Because is it avoidable? 100%. Like what happened to me doesn't have to be anybody else's story. I'm sure it will be. There will be people who go down a road like that. But knowing what we know now, I think we can spare a lot of heartache just because of what we've learned on the journey.
Why is it that so many successful megachurch pastors fall to especially sexual sin? But there's a number of things, greed, pride, there's that derail people too. But as far as like scandals, it seems like every other week. I mean, we just had Dr. Tony Evans step down last week, so it's like for vague reasons. But, what is it? Is it about the job, or is it like what's going on that this is so common?
Fair. I can't speak to a lot of the other situations because I don't know how they dug into it. I know for me, I had some sexual brokenness that led to some really dark habits and dark compulsive issues. And so my issues weren't sexually, focused, but that's often where it would end up. And that's common that you start finding out people who deal with addictive tendencies. It's never like sexual addiction isn't about sex. It's about trauma. And that's the case with a lot of things. Like there's a reason why someone's using heroin. There's a reason why somebody's, acting in a certain way. So I don't know. I don't think that the job of a pastor is so much harder than somebody else's job. I don't. I think it's unique and it's different, but I don't know why it seems like there's a link. The only thing I can guess is that people are looking for an escape and a release, and they don't know how to get it. And so maybe that could be a common bond. Okay, why do ministers do this? I don't know. Maybe the commonality is that the position can be isolated if you let it. It can be lonely if you let it, and it can be really introspective if you let it. And there are pastors who don't let it, and it's awesome. Like, have you ever heard people say it's really lonely at the top? I'm always like, only if you're stupid, only if you're silly. It doesn't have to be lonely anywhere. I chose a route that was isolated and lonely. So I don't know why it seems like mega church, big time ministries fall. But the truth is, it what you get caught doing isn't the reason. That's just the end of the road. You know what I'm saying? So there's more going on than what it looked like at the end.
The thing that I'm not in ministry, so like I just an observer. I realized every pastor I've had in Orlando up until right now is no longer in ministry. One took his own life, and two had scandals. It's just like, what in the world? I mean, this has been like following me throughout my life, observing this, and it seems like these guys are struggling with, like you said, unhealed trauma or other issues that are, then the pressure cooker of the expectations of, being the focal point of the ministry, exasperates these unhealed things in their life. But then they can't, it seems to me like, and tell me if this is true, that they can't talk to anybody about it. Like if a pastor, like it's been said, 75% of pastors struggle with pornography. That's not good. But they, in my opinion, can't tell anybody. They can't tell the elders, or else they'll be removed from ministry. They're thinking about the shame that would put on their family and themselves and all the other things. So they just try to deal with it by themselves. And then it seems like then it gets worse or things go sideways. Yeah. Is that a fair observation, or do you think that's too simplistic?
It's such a layered answer, bro, because you would love for this to be true, where a pastor can go talk to somebody and it's confidential and it's safe and he can get help and get care. Depending on what kind of eldership structure you have, that kind of depends on how that's going to go. And so there are a lot of people who are either assuming correctly that if they go tell their elders, hey, I'm struggling with porn, they're going to sit that pastor down. Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. I'm not making a judgment there, but I'm saying there are ramifications for somebody being honest. I don't know. I don't know if people are ready to deal with that. I don't know, like, what do we do with pastors that struggle? with porn. And additionally, 75%, I've never been interviewed for one single survey in my whole life. So I never believe those numbers. I think it's probably way higher. It's like, how did they get those stats? Like, you know, so I think it's probably higher. My point is, I feel like, could I have talked to somebody? Yes, I should have. I should have been honest with somebody. Did I have the right people in place? Yes, I did. I just didn't access it. I didn't utilize it. So I feel like there has to be a point of integrity for the pastor to get to a place where you realize, like for me, Cam, it was more, I look back on it now, it just was selfish. I told myself, you know, that it was brave reasons. Like, I'm going to gut this out on my own because I don't want to let people down. I don't want to hurt people, and I can get through this. Well, that's not true. I was already letting people down. I wasn't getting through it. It was getting worse. And I should have sat myself down. I should have sat in front of somebody and said, hey, I'm struggling with this. And, but there's that whole conversation of what is okay for a pastor to be dealing with as a functioning pastor and what isn't. And you're going to get a million opinions on that. That's the truth. So it's a very tricky conversation. But in regards to, does the guy at the top have somewhere to go? Yeah, I think it can be a little bit of a cop-out when I hear people say I didn't have anybody to talk to. Well, you chose that. You know, that's not my story. So I can't speak to this. But to me, I could have talked to people and they would have protected and helped me and given me, you know, grace and health that I needed. I just didn't do it. So I don't know if that's answering your question. I feel like it's all about what that pastor wants, you know, and if you get caught doing something and you blame it on your own isolation, it's like, you choose to be isolated. And what's more important, your health or the ministry? So if I talk to you today, Cam, and I've got some secrets and I'm submitted to you, I'm trusting that you're going to make the right call. So ultimately I have to do the right thing, which is say, hey, I'm struggling, and trust that you're a good man. And you're going to go, okay, hey, I'm going to keep that between us, or hey, I'm going to take this further. We might need to sit you down, but you're putting your life and your calling in somebody else's hands. And that's healthy. It's just very, very scary for people.
When you mentioned that at some point in the journey at Hillsong, you were like, I'm going to gut this out on my own. I'll get through this. I don't want to hurt anybody. Yeah. When did you start realizing, like you knew you had things in your life that you were hiding or you were unhealthy?
At least 5 years prior. When I look back at it, honestly, I knew that I should step down because to my standard, to what I believe a pastor should be, you know, living towards, I failed. I missed that bar. And because I could get back up again, because I could make it right for a little bit of time, and it felt like a cycle that was over and it started and it ended, felt like, okay, I've got enough good momentum where I can forget about this, put this behind me. It's the best thing for everybody. And then that cycle continues. It's just bigger and it's just worse and it's just more dangerous. So, yeah, I think I knew that I had lies that I had allowed to sit, and lies don't ever stay the same. You never get away with a lie. They always grow, especially if you're in leadership. So what might be a lie up here to protect one thing, well, if you're leading an organization, that thing's going to go all the way down. That's exactly what happened. Because there's a level you can't go to if you're lying. There's a place of intimacy. There's a place of leadership you can't go to. So the moment I chose to cover up my own sin, way before I got caught, it was really the beginning of the end for me, for sure. And I knew it. I could feel it. I just didn't know what to do, but I knew for sure that something has shifted. This lie that I'm holding is going to kill me.
Did you feel a shift or a blockage in your ministry and your closeness with the Lord? Did you feel inauthentic, or were you like, nah, I got this, and like it was just like normal? Like, did you feel like you were faking it?
No, because I wasn't. In my mind, and I look back on it now, we're always going to preach with sin. We're always going to preach with stuff that's not right. To the level of it, yeah, that's a huge conversation. But I never felt like I was faking it, because I was always preaching about Jesus, and I was always preaching the gospel, and I was always preaching about what I believe the Bible says to be true. So as a really fallible messenger, I could, in the moment, I could stomach it. It would make me sick. It would be hard, but I would, I recently heard it said preachers are the last ones that listen to what they preach. And if that's true, and it can be, I had to be able to listen to myself and go, I'm I'm a broken human being communicating about a perfect God. I can still do that. And it just makes me, I think when we sin, we don't realize that we're hurting ourselves more than anybody else. So my closeness with Jesus didn't change ever. Like I've always felt God has had his hand on me. I've always felt like there's grace. I feel like every step of the way I had an option out and I didn't obey. So in those moments, I did have different conversations with God then than I do now. Back then, it was more like, I'm not even looking for things for myself because I have failed. I am a failure, but I can still be a good servant. So use me as you will. And I'm not going to be praying for stuff. I'm not going to be believing for stuff because I recognize that I'm failing. So I had some twisted theology in my own mind that I created. But overall, my relationship with God, I feel like sometimes when we're in the biggest struggles of our lives, that's where God's voice is the loudest. And I can honestly point to that in my own life and know, even like the night before everything happened with me, I remember having a quiet time where I was under a bridge in Brooklyn and I was just screaming, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And the next day, everything changed. So I think sometimes God could even I didn't even know what to pray for. I just knew that this wasn't, I don't know what to do. I remember, have you ever had a moment like that where you don't know exactly how to articulate your own need? And so I always find that link to be really interesting. The day after I prayed, and little did I know, Laura said she was praying that same night somewhere else. That God, just do something because I know my husband's lost. I know that there's stuff going on. I don't know how to put my finger on it. And so on that same night, we were both asking God to break something open. Wouldn't have picked this. Wish it could have been a gentler, different way. My gosh. But I look back on it now and I go, God saved my life. He really did.
When everything came to light and you were an international headline for not great reasons, if you're at this breaking point and you're desperate and whatever, did you feel relief, shame? Like what was going through your head when everything came out?
Probably fear, relief, then being terrified, and then immediate protection mode of how can I save my kids and my wife? How can I salvage my family? So the relief of it was almost like there's a little bit of me that felt like I was hiding in plain sight. Like I'm dying. In the moment I got caught, I was almost like, thank God this freaking thing is over. Like I will never go back to ministry. I don't care about that. I just want to somehow find my life again. And I want to see if I can save my marriage and my kids. So it was like an immediate switch from being humiliated, terrified, and then motivated to go, maybe I can get this right. Maybe God's given me a window to dig out this stuff and change forever. So I'm going to take it. So there was a couple of days where I kind of was in a really confusing, scary, suicidal place. And it shifted into, let me see if I can get some help.
Okay. So you were in a dark place right after everything hit. And then your number went green for 3 to 6 months. And before I was able to reconnect with you, what was going on? Like you went to rehab, you've talked about this, but like what actually happened with your family? You're trying to salvage your family. You're trying to like, what did you do to like address what the storm that was circling you guys?
Yeah, we had to leave New York and we went to LA just because we had some friends there. And we just began. I mean, we had 3, not small kids, but preteens. Roman was a little guy. Like it was just horrible. Mid-COVID, we're moving. Everything's changed. There's horrible things in the news. There's, paparazzi. You name it, there was stuff getting thrown at my family. So I think it was a really, really scary time. But we got great advice, got great help. There were some people that really gathered around us and said, hey, let this stuff go. It's not just about you. There's bigger things at play anyway. But you can't defend yourself. It's ridiculous. It's not even worth it. You're not going to be able to right every wrong. Focus on what is true and work on it and let this other stuff play out as it's going to play out. Best advice we got, bro. because I listened, and I haven't listened to much up until that point. I was listening to 80% of good wisdom. And I think that was something we did listen to. And then we just went to work. So Laura went to get her own counseling. I went to get counseling, came back from that first counseling thing at on-site in Tennessee and realized I needed to go somewhere else, because I'm on the doorstep of every addiction that just destroyed my life. Because when you get caught as someone who's dealing with addictive stuff, you're like, I'm never going to do that again. But that's just because the pain is really relevant at that time. And then as that fades, you find yourself with the same addictive desires. And you're like, how could that be? Like, I just burnt down my family. How could I still be, leaning towards wanting to do some of this stuff again? So, and then I went to that rehab, which I've talked about, and radically changed my life, gave me hope, gave me tools. I came out of there ready to go to work. And Laura, has been obviously a hero, and she's gracious, and she has given me an opportunity to rebuild our family. And that's what we spent. That's what we're going to do the rest of our lives. But that's what I've been up to. So I changed my number straight away, and just didn't look back.
I think that's the most unbelievable part of all of it, is that she didn't leave you.
Yeah.
Why? Why didn't she leave you?
Well, she says it's because she wanted to see what I could do with the information that I had. So it wasn't like a defiant, I'm going to go cheat on you and I'm going to, wreck our lives. It was, she recognized there was more going on with me than even I knew. And she didn't excuse it. She didn't accept it. She didn't, make a cover for me. She just said, I guess we'll see what you'll do now. And she's told the story a few times now, just about, she didn't forgive me until last year. Probably didn't trust me until maybe a year before that. Like, so the thought of Laura standing by me as a loyal woman, like an old prairie wife that just takes it on the chin is completely false. It wasn't that. She was protected. She had her boundaries, and I had to show up every day and do my job, which was given to me by her and the people I was accountable to. And if I didn't do that, she was gone. She had her money separated. She had divorce lawyers. She had people that were all over this. So, I think if there is somebody that wants to stick it out, I think the way she did it is safe, because if I didn't make the right decisions, it's not like she's still hanging out, waving in the wind there. She had a way to, get out of there and get forward. So she is a miracle. There was no reason for her to stay, and she chose to stay to see what God could do with our story, and that's where we're at.
I know probably your kids had a similar feeling, and of like, well, if Dad's gonna prove it over time, then we'll stay in his corner. But if he deviates from the plan, we're out of here. I mean, I know you have friends like that. I know you have, like, there's conditions. Like, you got to do what you say you're going to do. Like, we're not going to be burned twice. We're going to we'll stand by you, but we're going to see if you're going to tell the truth this time.
Yeah.
Do you feel, I don't know, how does that make you feel that like so many of the people that were closest to you, if they didn't leave, I know a lot of your closest people did leave. Mm-hmm. The ones that stayed conditionally. Like, how do you feel? How does that make you feel?
I mean, I found out there's all different types of friends, and not nobody does it exactly the same way. So how did I feel that some of my closest friends left? I understood it. I got it. Hurt, crushed, sad, mad for a little bit as well. And then that chapter of friendships I put somewhere else. The friends that stayed but had conditions, I got that too. I understood it. And at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to start fresh with conditions either. So I don't know how I'm going to handle that or play that. And then there were the friends that were like, I don't know what makes these guys different, but I relate to it. It's just like, hey, I loved you before. I'm going to love you now. Like, I'm not going to leave you now. Like, you have an issue. You're handling it. It's big. And it affected a lot of people because of your role. But that doesn't make much sense for me to be in your boat and then jump out when you're sinking. So there were a lot of those friends, Cam, to be honest with you. And I'm still blown away at the graciousness of God for anybody to act like that. It's not like they're got their eyes shut. Like, I mean, you're a friend that has stuck by me and you've given me grace. At the same time, you're not an idiot. Like, if I'm blatantly not doing what I said I do, now you're around somebody who's willfully continuing to deceive people. That's a different world. So I feel like if you're in my shoes, you have to be willing to accept people's conditions. And when you don't get conditions from people, it's even more humbling, because there are always going to be conditions. Hear me. But to have somebody say, I'm going to give you trust you haven't earned, that's a heavy and amazing weight to carry.
I feel like the church is all about being redeemed, and that's the gospel. It's like in our brokenness, Christ fills in the gaps, and it's like I think it's so interesting to watch, though, then the church, when leaders fall, discard them like trash, and it's like, well, shouldn't we be rooting for their redemption? Shouldn't we be rooting for their restoration? Shouldn't we? If they're willing to do the work, if they're willing to, shouldn't we be pulling for them? But for so many situations you see, it's just like Christians are like the most or least forgiving and the most judgmental. And that just always baffles me that we don't do what we say we believe in,
I think, Cam, it's like there's a line in there where, to what you're saying, yes, I feel like, especially if somebody's response is, I surrender, I think that should warrant a different response as well. It doesn't mean you have to trust. I mean, you have to love. But I never once put my hand up and was defiant, even when there were lies being said. I let it ride. Yeah. And so I feel like if I'm defiant and I'm going to plant a church a month later and I'm displacing blame, but if someone sins, and yes, even if they're a leader and they confess their sin and they repent and they do everything they're asked to do, I do feel like that has to weigh in somewhere. It has to be factored in. Doesn't mean people have to have leadership positions. I mean, you have to agree with them. But the base level of grace from this angle, what I've seen in some of the church culture, it's very interesting because it doesn't match what we say. I mean, we have preachers, even some of my old friends, that will preach these big, long, beautiful messages about prodigals and being kind to people and in reality, we don't really walk that out. We just don't. It's okay as long as everybody admits that. That's my thing. It's like, cool, still preach it, but also put your hand up and say, I'm really bad at this. Our church is really bad at this. We don't like it when people come in and they're that bad. We have different levels of bad too. There's some bad that makes us feel good and look good. I'm going to sit next to a homeless guy because he didn't deserve this and he's whatever. And that makes you look good as well. And then there's other kind of bad, an adulterer, somebody who's a leader and they lied and deceived people. That's a different bad where you don't want anything to do with that. So we've got different standards. And again, my thing with the church is, let's just be honest, though. It's not unconditional love. It's love with conditions. Maybe that's okay. But let's talk about it. It's not come as you are. Not true. Should it be? Yeah, it's a discussion. But that's not how it is. So I think that's what I've seen. And that's what I'm going to enjoy helping other people come to grips with.
The thing that I've observed being a professional Christian for 25 years now is it seems like there's a pattern. I'm not saying this is 100% the case, but the most judgmental, angry Christians are compensating for something or hiding something. For example, you've seen over the years the most, anti-homosexual, advocates to angry. Oh, okay. Then they were caught years later in a, gay bar or whatever, I mean, like they were hiding, they hated this about themselves. So they judge other people about it. And I'm wondering how much of the fact that we talked earlier about how many church leaders are struggling with secret sin at some level in their life because they don't have places to turn or they're ignoring the ability to get help or whatever. And so they see you and they're like, see, he's what's wrong with everything. Cause it's almost like if they can deflect attention away from themselves, they feel holier, they feel better. And that's why there's so much vitriol and anger. Cause I feel like if we're honest with ourselves, if we're transparent, we all sin. I mean, we all fall short. So it's like, why don't we extend others the grace that we so desperately need ourselves? I just walk in humility with a little bit more softness, not excusing the sin per se, but just saying like, I understand because I'm not perfect either. Like I just don't, it's just an observation.
No, and I agree with the observation. I have found that the harshest people in this chapter are absolutely people that it's so obvious that they either have the same issue or they have issues that they're raging against. And I found the people who have been the most gracious are often the most aware of their own road and how susceptible they are. It doesn't mean they're sinners actively sinning and lying. It just means the people who give me the most grace, I've looked at them like, man, what did you go through that enabled you to look me dead in the eyes and say, man, I hope you get it together, but you're forgiven and God's with you and you're going to be okay. And maybe they still need to keep their distance and all that. That's not the issue. The issue is like the grace with which they function. But yeah, most of the time, and I don't even call those people Christians, Cam, like the commenters and people who are they don't get the most basic element of our faith. So I'm not sure I take to heart everything that someone who professes to be a Christian says to me. I go, I don't know. I'm going to sit on that because I don't know what you believe. Because if you believe what I believe, you wouldn't be saying what you're saying.
I'm interested that you brought up the commenters. Like what a big conversation that happened in the 6 months after, you hit the headlines was a lot of people basically using your story to trash the church. See, they're all a bunch of hypocrites, they're all a bunch of frauds. And I also heard the story of people who were really positively impacted by your ministry. And they were either at the church or they'd seen you speak over the years that gave their life to the Lord because of a service that you were leading. And they got disillusioned. Like, was this all a lie? And they left the faith or they left the church because of you. You're obviously aware of a lot of those stories. How did you deal with that? How do you carry that? Do you take it personally? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Great question. I don't carry it because you can't bear that weight. So that's something I had to immediately give back to God and say, the thought of people leaving the faith because of my actions it puts me on the suicidal brink. So that being said, I'm going to do what you said to do. I'm going to cast these cares. And because that's the biggest care, one of them, and I'm going to cast it. And I'm going to rest in the fact that I'm forgiven. And I can't do anything about that, but I can do a lot about my life moving forward. And I believe that every single one of those people that was impacted by my ministry and were disillusioned, if they did hear anything in my ministry, they would have heard about a God that is gracious and a God that redeems and a God that forgives. So I think that'll push them through to a point where God can then start a new chapter with them where they got through me. Like my life and my example where I failed, it wasn't a barrier that God gave me the strength to push through. And so I'm sad for those people, and I'm deeply sorry that I did the opposite of my life's calling, which is to point to the light and to point to who Jesus is with our lives. And there were moments in my ministry, in my life, where it didn't match what I said. And that was hard for people. So for those people that were disillusioned and they're questioning God, I get it. It's hard. And I still have complete faith that God will restore those people to a brighter relationship with him. That's who God is. I'm not that powerful. I don't have that kind of power to necessarily change somebody's view of God Almighty. It might seem like that for a second when you're in the middle of a scandal, but just a guy. I've always been just a guy. I made mistakes, lied about it, covered it up, and none of that changes who Jesus is. None of it. And so that's what I say to the people that are, that have been disillusioned. I'm sorry. And keep watching. Because if what I was saying wasn't real, I definitely wouldn't be sitting here still married, still talking about Jesus. And so kind of makes the stuff I said even more true because I preached about it when things are good for me and bad. It's the same message. So I think there's something to be said for that. And in regards to the people who used me as a battering ram as far as to fight against the church, what are you going to do? It's frustrating that I gave some of those people such great ammo All churches are this, preachers are that. And then my situation comes along. And it's like, yes, something I can blog about, and I can put a photo, and I can point to this guy. Okay. Well, yeah, it feels like they won that quarter, but the first quarter's over. Second quarter's different. Momentum changes. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like those people get the last word, because the story's not over.
Did you feel that you've always been a target? Like, you had a lot of criticism even before all this.
Yeah, I mean, some of it
because you're flashy. You're like Mr. Cool Guy, hype priest. All that stuff. Like, you represented
a lot of that's weird jealousy. And we've talked about that. We get that. There's a lot of that weird jealousy in the Christian kingdom, and some of those people just were like that when they were younger, and they grew up to be leaders. So they still have that weird jealous vibe, and they cover it with spirituality and whatever. So that was always a part of Hillsong, New York City, because people, as much as they tried to say the right thing, if you are a church planner and you come in and God breathes on it and it explodes, and that doesn't happen for you, you really gotta get closer to God immediately, or there's going to be comparison. There's going to be frustration. There's going to be people who try to make up reasons why your stuff's working and their stuff isn't, as if it's some sort of a race. But yeah, I don't think. I've always dealt with it because I feel like that's my call, and I feel like it's our call. Sometimes it's to be a lightning rod, and some of it has been my fault at times that it wasn't part of my call, just bad decisions. But I'm human, and a lot of it I've felt over the years has just been a part of our mandate. We're gonna stir it up, and we're gonna stand against the culture, and we're gonna do it our way. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. It's okay. We've always been like that. I don't ever think I've been flashy. I don't ever think I've been the cool guy. I've just always been.
What are you talking about? That's literally your reputation, is that you were the leather jacket cool guy.
How does that make me flashy? Think about it. Why is my leather jacket, why does that make me flashy? And the fact that people say I'm cool is completely subjective. There's a lot of people who don't think I'm cool. There's a lot of people who don't think so I had the same leather jacket. I still have it. I'll wear it all day long.
I think the flashiness, it's not what happened on the church stage. I think it's the Instagrams with celebrities and things like that.
Like, Kim, I really stopped doing that early on because of the hate. And I thought, man, this is so ridiculous. Like, it is our life, but I really steered clear of it. You can look on my Instagram and see pretty much the day I stopped, because I was like, this isn't wrong, but I just don't want to deal with it. So, and I look back on that and I regret that, because I was trying to cater to people who hated me regardless of what I did. So why am I going to limit my life for somebody that I can't convince anyway? This is stupid. So I look back on that. I'm like, I should have Instagrammed every picture I felt led to. I should have had more fun. I should have been more excited. But I was worried, and I'm not proud of that. But there was some of that stuff wore on me, and I just didn't want the problems. So I don't think I was flashy with the celebrity thing. I feel like a lot of that stuff was narratives that were, grown as I went along. It just became an easy thing. Flashy dude, New York City. It's like, flashy? You don't really? Like, which part is flashy?
It looked like from afar that you were concerned with what people thought of you. Were you?
Yes, I was. I think there's part of that is good. It's healthy. We should. Anybody who says, I don't care what people think, they're lying right away. Of course you do. It's humanity. But what that does in your life, that's the question. Does it rule you? Does it become your compass or your navigator? And for me, it was too much. Like, I think I was trying to please too many people. And I think maybe my heart was right. Like, I'm the guy who back in the day, you could catch me arguing on a comment thread with somebody with an egg photo and 2 followers talking about theology. Why would I do that? Because I love people and I want somebody to get understanding. And I found out through all this, my deepest felt need is to be understood. I didn't know that. And now I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh. So now I'm very guarded and very upfront with the people in my life about my need to be understood. And if I feel it taking shape, I talk about it. I get help because it's not healthy. And so you're right. If you looked at me from a distance, like that guy really cares what people think. Because I didn't want to make people stumble. I didn't want people to get lost in some narrative. I did all the stuff you think. That's what I thought. So that's just the truth. I did care. And towards some parts of my ministry, I cared way too much. And I wouldn't go back and repeat that. I would just do exactly what I felt called to do. And I would not apologize. And I would not appease. And I would not go meet with somebody who's never going to change. It's just not going to happen. So back then, I really thought that I could change everybody.
Is your desire to be understood why you're now doing the podcast and telling your story?
Good question. No. We're not doing this podcast to be understood, because the people who want to understand our story from a certain way, that's how they're going to understand it. People who don't, they're not. I can't change their mind. And it's not my business what they think. I love that therapy thought. What other people think of me is none of my business. We're doing this to help people with our story. If there's an audience for it and people love it and it's helping them, awesome. If not, cool. Our motive is to put this out there, moving forward. Let me use what I'm good at uniquely, my angle, my perspective, my love of Jesus. Let me just see what kind of help I can offer. But understanding, you're never going to be able to understand this. Nobody can understand somebody else's road. You can have empathy for it. You can judge it, but understand it. So no, we knew going into this, Cam, there's going to be people who are going to take shots. There's going to be people who like us. There's going to be people who hate us. Don't care. Not doing it for any of that. We're doing it because we both feel compelled to use what we know right now, 4 years out from this, to help people, because it is urgent. I could wait 15 years. Sure. Could wait 10 years. I could never do a podcast. All that stuff is on the table. But why would we do that? Like, why would we not share every detail that could help somebody? And so 99% good feedback, from people who have been very kind. And I think people are surprised. That's what I keep hearing. I get thousands of messages from people going, I'm pretty surprised, which is sad that it's not the pattern for some guys that fall publicly, but whatever.
It's also, I think they're surprised about you because of what we were just talking about, because the Carl Lentz that was the public perception up until 2020 cared about his image, cared about what people thought of him. And now you're bearing your soul. This isn't the Carl we knew 10 years ago. Who's this guy? That's why they're surprised.
That's a good point. But I feel like I did before. I feel like I was as honest as I knew how to be. So I agree. I'm not pushing back on you, but I'm saying, I think maybe people are surprised at this level of honesty, but I don't have anything else to give. And it's like, that's like, we're so happy kind of with where God has taken our lives as far as our health, that I just got to be honest the rest of my life to this level. And I'm going to let the chips fall where they may, but it does feel good. And I do think people are surprised. And if I had another motive, I wouldn't be this honest. That's why I don't once in a while I'll get a criticism of like, I wonder what their motives are. Well, number one, I really believe motives are God's job. Our hearts are pretty twisted at the end of the day, and God sorts out motives. But if my motive was like a PR campaign to come back on I would think I would mute a lot of these horrific things that I'm talking about, because it doesn't help me in that regard. But I also don't need it. So I'm going to do what is painful and hard, because that's the only way to really help people, is to answer the questions you're asking honestly, not hedged, so that I have a future in this field, or so this person will respect me. I don't care. I don't. God bless them. I know where God has us right now.
I've over the last few years, there's other Christian leader friends that knew that I was close to you, and they would ask me about you, like, what's really going on with Carl? Because you had fallen off the face of the earth for 4 years, And I was like, I can tell you that if a pastor was going to go through what he went through and do what he did, we should be rooting for his restoration and healing. I'm not talking about ministry restoration, but just his life being restored and his life being healed and his family being made whole. And it's a hard, long road, and it's not easy. And if we were to write down every step that we would want that person to take that did this egregious thing and hurt so many people, And we were like, here's the plan. Here's the prescription of what we would ask you to do. He has exceeded that plan. And I've seen it. Like he's not trying to cut corners. He's not like trying to do the lip service thing of like, oh, well, I lost my big church over here. And 6 months later, I'm going to go to a new city and launch a new church. Like he's not trying to rush back. Like, honestly, he's not talking about coming back into ministry yet. Like he's got a cute desk job, which was in the documentary, your cubicle, like he's, focused on his wife and his kids. And that's it. Like literally that's it, is getting a paycheck and making sure his family's okay and doing therapy and just trying to heal. And it's like, shouldn't we be rooting for that? And then they're all like, yeah. Like, I think they were surprised by that reality, is that this is what you've done, because I think everybody thought that you would take about 6 to 9 months off and then you come back better than ever. You know what I mean? And you didn't. And people are confused by that. And I just want to publicly say,
thank you, man.
I'm proud of you. Like you've chosen the hardest path, but it's the path that is actually leading to substantive, sustainable healing for you and your family. And the fact that I've seen firsthand that that's all that matters to you, and you don't have an ulterior agenda, like ulterior motive. Like it's sadly rare, and I think that's why so many leaders are skeptical or like unsure of what to think yet. You know what I mean?
And it's okay. Like I earn that. I earn that skepticism, and I don't care, because I don't need somebody to approve our plan, because I know that God's in it and we've entrusted our lives with people that I'm accountable to. But I did notice, though, first of all, thank you for saying that. It means a lot. I did notice, though, that what you said is correct. If there was a checklist of things to do, been doing those. And it didn't necessarily change a lot of people's gracious view. And that's how I knew this wasn't about me. Because if a guy stumbles and he does these 7 things, maybe, well, I did those. And you were still a complete idiot and a jerk. And you turned your back and you are still writing things. And you're still. So that's when I was like, man, this is actually heavier than I even imagined. I feel bad, for dudes in my position who don't have the friends that I do, don't have the outlets. But I do feel like that's something that wasn't talked about a lot. And I think it's because it would take away too much of the narrative. If it got out that I was doing exactly what I was told to do by doctors and pastors and my wife, and I was doing it to the T, it would change the narrative too much. But the guy who's going to come back 6 months later and have a completely new PR image and a new church and kind of, you're right. I think people did expect that. I think some people still do. They're like, he's just waiting longer. Hate to break it to those people. That's not in the cards. It's just not. And you can keep on doubting, and no one ever apologizes. It's not like, hey, come back in 5 years. You're never going to come back. The people who have already written things that are false, no one's ever written me like, hey, sorry, I wrote that. I was wrong. No, they just shut their mouths. And so people are like, I'm skeptical. Cool. I would be skeptical. I get that. Nothing I can do for you there other than I'm going to keep doing my best to live a life that's clean and honest and hopeful and passionate. And if you choose to give me the honor of trusting me again, I really appreciate it. And I accept it. But I can't force that. And I can't be on a tryout, a grace tryout. Like, does this mean I'm reformed? Does this mean I'm healthy? Like, what do you need to see that you're going to think that I'm different? Like, I can't live like that. That's not, and plus that's performative. It's behavior therapy. Like, I haven't been working on my behavior, Cam. I've been working on the state of my soul. Big difference. My behavior, like, anybody can change behavior and stay the same person and fool people. It takes a lot of excavation to crack open your soul and figure out where these character flaws and defects and landmines came from. And that's what I want to stay about the rest of my life. So, long answer, great question. I'm not performing for people so they can go, there he is, that guy, he's repented. Go forward. Like, who are you? Sometimes I want to ask people, like, why do you think you have the power to throw a blanket of acceptance or non-acceptance on anybody? I don't believe that's the God that we serve.
How are you today? 4 years later, almost 4 years.
I am really sound. I feel steady. I feel focused. I feel sober. I feel bored at times, which was my goal. My rehab goal was to, years down the track, learn how to accept bored, because bored isn't bored. Bored is healthy. So now I'm able to say, I've got room in my life. I've got room to breathe. I've got room to move, room to grow. So I'm really excited. I feel like I told you this early on. We were hanging out. I just said there is a part of me that hopes that how I feel will continue to feel like this, because I do believe I have a new lease on life. I do believe that God's grace can, feel fresh every morning, as fresh as it really is. So that's the answer to how I feel right now is I'm excited. I'm really hopeful for the podcast. That's been really cool to see the response. I figured that it would definitely strike a chord. I didn't know it would strike a chord to this degree. But I'm grateful for that, because I think people are realizing, all right, if we're going to go to this podcast, those two are going to be as honest as they can. And that's probably, I've heard over and over, it's refreshing. And I know what they mean, because I've seen a lot of pastors talk on podcasts, especially the marriage stuff. And it can seem a little bit hollow. And we just don't, it's not our story. We got a really gruesome one. So if you have a marriage or a relationship world that has some trauma in it, we're probably going to be able to relate to you, and vice versa. If you're like you got a squeaky clean, incredible, strong, I don't know if you're going to like us at all, because we're like over here in the freaking mire working out how to survive. And so turns out there's a lot of people over there too. So God bless the people with the perfect testimony. We need them, and they're there and they're inspiring. And then God bless the people like us who don't have that story.
What are you excited about when you think of the future?
I'm excited about seeing my kids grow up. Like, that's been, this chapter has been a gift, because I've been able to be such a freaking present dad. And there's just no way it would have happened before. I wasn't on that path to being a present dad. And I feel like just in time for my kids' most crucial moments and formative years, my eyes were open. So I love watching their lives develop. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about Laura and I continuing to find out how we can use our story to help people. I get excited about that, because, there's the one thing I'm not going to do is not freaking use this stuff. You got to be kidding me. Like, if it's going to choke me out to the point where I'm tapping, I've lost a million fights, and I survived. We are surviving. So the last thing I'm going to do is like walk around with my head down. No, God has picked my head up, and I'm really excited about how many people can we help. And, behind the scenes, we've been able to help a lot of people already with big time stuff. And it's like, if it was just for that people don't know about, I told some guy after he turned his life around completely, we were able to, walk him through some things. And I said, man, I would hate this if it's true, but I would accept it. If it was just to help you navigate around the pit that I fell in, it was almost worth it, because I'm so grateful to see you avoid this. And I don't think that was God's will for my life, Cam. I don't think when he created me, it's like, Carl's going to do this and that. I don't think of God like that. I know that God's sovereign, and he can use a story like this and do great things. He didn't cause it. This isn't God's issue. These are my issues. And God's so faithful, he can use a story like this.
I think a shift I've seen, and just piggybacking on what you just said, I've seen, again, being a professional Christian for 25 years, a lot of people come and go. A lot of people get, blow up and then get unhealthy, and then it just collapses, and then you never hear from them again. And, I've observed in recent years, like certain individuals that are very influential, that I just kind of get the EBGBs. The warning signs are there just from afar. I don't know them, just from afar. It's just like I see the pattern. And I've even mentioned a couple of them to you, and you are like, here's what's going on. You're not wrong, but here's what we're doing. And we're not going to let that happen. And we have done this and this and this. And these people have rallied around that guy, and we've gotten this. And I'm going, are you serious? Because I'll tell you, that did not happen 5, 10, 15 years ago. You know what I mean? The person was out there on their own, and they just collapsed. And it's interesting now that God maybe has used your story to make people more aware that, hey, if the warning signs are there, that means something's unhealthy, and we need to go get our friend, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And get them the help they need. And maybe we can prevent the fall. Maybe we can prevent it from getting to that point. And hearing you kind of telling me some of those stories behind the scenes that are happening now, I'm telling you that was not happening 5 years ago. And so hallelujah, because that could have such an impact on what God's doing today, getting some of these guys and women to stay in the fight and get healthy. Like, good, so. And
there's some advantages of my story is it is that I have been through it. It's not like I'm going to sit across from somebody who's more humiliated.
Like your finger at them. Yeah.
Or lost more. Like I lost a lot, went through a lot. So I think being able to use our story in that way, it is really redeeming for sure. Feels good.
So podcast plans, Lights On with Carl Lentz. It's blowing up 3 episodes in when we're recording this. What's the long-term plans for it? Do you see it as like there's a beginning, middle, and end to this story? Or do you see it a forever thing? What's your vision for the podcast?
Yeah, I think my vision for the podcast is to continue, like the why I chose Lights On, and it took me forever to think of something to call that pod, is because I've lived so long in the dark. The moment you turn the lights on, a room that seems scary, it's not so scary. And I feel like that represents so much of the people that I love and the people that I can reach and have reached in the past. It's like a little bit of light right there is going to bring a whole lot of help. And so I think moving forward, the first chunk of this, I wanted us to be able to talk about our story, because everybody else has, not everybody, a lot of people have, and it can help people. And the next chapter is going to be some of the people that help me. So whether it's doctors, friends, therapists, that's going to be a lot of fun. We've done a couple of them already, and they're just unfreaking believable. They're going to be too much for some Christians, for sure, because we're not fluffing around with this stuff. It's like we're really going to talk about some of the stuff that isn't talked about. And then beyond that, I don't know what the future holds. I think I love talking to people and extracting gold from them for everybody else. And Cam, this is an important thing. I had access to help that cost a lot of money. People helped me get there. Yeah. Not everybody has the access to that. So for the people who have questioned me from time, like, why do you have to do a podcast? Well, I don't have to do anything, but I'm also responsible for the information I've been given. And especially with some of the addiction recovery stuff, people don't have access to what I did. So I'm going to give you access to it. I want to take this to people who can't spend ungodly amount of money to go to a rehab. You know how many people wish they could go to the rehab that I went to? They just can't. They can't get there. It's too much money. Who can do that? So I want my podcast to be like the Cliff Notes version of all the stuff you can't afford. You might not be able to get the book, but man, I'm going to try to give you some of the stuff that's helping me. Take it or leave it. And what I'm seeing early is that people are like, cool. We're gonna take it, because we're not telling people what to do, bro. That's not our heart. It's not to be like, we made it, everyone gather around, here, come back. It's like, I don't even live like that anymore. It's like, I am on a journey. I'm going forward with my family. There's room on there for you if you want to. I don't know. I'm not better than you. We're all different, but we do have a unique angle. And I'm going to share that. If you want to hear it. But it's not from the guru spot. It's not from, the guy who's setting up a church move down the road. Like, I can't express to you how much that's not who we are.
All right. Last question. Everybody wants to know, when are you launching your church?
You jerk. I get this one, Cam, and I did ministry most of my adult life. I don't miss doing church. I can't imagine us doing a church at all. If down the road I feel super compelled, you'll know about it for years beforehand. Like, the people that I love, I'm going to start floating and going, man, but what I went through was significant. My leadership and the impact it had on people, significant. Whether I like it or not, I ran a church and it went bad at the last chapter. Like, the whole picture of Hillsong, New York City, amazing. I'm proud of it. So proud of it. I'm also really aware that there's a part in there that's painful that had to do with my leadership. I don't take that lightly. So I'm not going to rush some of the repair jobs that it takes to, I didn't get there overnight. I'm not going to get healed overnight. but I'm not starting any church. If God shows up and an angel drops on my doorstep and knocks with like blueprints, I'm still going to say, bring another angel. I got to have a witness. And even then I'm going to, submit it. But I think that it's all people can see preachers as is preachers. Yeah. I'm not that guy. I've actually enjoyed the job I had that you knew about in Florida. I've enjoyed doing this podcast. I've enjoyed coaching, because that's like kind of where my lifeblood is right now. And I get to do what I did on a mass scale with one person. And I freaking love it without some of the headaches that come with. I don't miss the ministry headaches at all. But yeah, so that's my real answer is it's not even in the conversation. And I know people are skeptical of that. Cool. Please contact me down the road when you find out I wasn't just blowing smoke with Cam on the Relevant podcast. Like, no, I don't expect you to come back around. But I can tell you right now, if people are waiting for me to come back and do a church, I'm going to be waiting a long time.
Well, thanks for being so honest and open. I mean, it's refreshing. The church needs it. I know you're not thinking about all that. You're not thinking about the weight that you carry, but your story and you walking it out the way you have over the last 4 years and in private, and now you talking about that private journey publicly, it really is helping a lot of people, man. And it's going to continue to. And I'm cheering you on. So thanks for having this conversation with us, buddy.
Before you hang up on me, I've loved Relevant for a long time. You know that. And your community often is filled with Christians that are trying to reach the world. And I'm sorry to those people that are part of the Relevant community where my story hindered your ability to do that. And I really pray that the people who call this community home, that keep watching the story, because I'm hoping the same story that made a hindrance will become a help at some point. But I'm aware for people that love you and they love this Relevant vibe, then you can't like Relevant if you don't want to reach people. You can't do it. It's not that sticky Christian community they're filled with people who are they're out there trying to get it done. I recognize that my story back then made it harder, and I apologize for that deeply. And I look forward to me giving them ammo that's different moving forward. So thank you for doing what you've done for so long, bro.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks for having this conversation with us. All the best.
Why are you laughing? Appreciate right there? Why did that make you laugh?
Nothing. I'm not laughing. I'm just, smiling. You're sweet. You're, deflecting. You always deflect.
I'm not deflecting. I'm coming right at you. You have given your life to make this stand with this relevant idea. And it's our world's better for it, bro. So proud to know you. Love you. Appreciate you. Thanks for letting me come on.
That was my friend, Carl Lentz. I highly recommend you go listen to their new podcast, he and Laura's new podcast, Lights On. It's available wherever you get your podcasts, and also in the B-Side app, which he didn't plug, but I will. And maybe share this conversation. I think a lot of people need to hear some of the things that were said. Okay, well, on that note, we'll wrap things up. I'm Cameron Strang.
I'm Jesse Carey.
I'm Emily Brown.
I'm Marty.
We will see you on Friday. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Relevant Podcast. Check out our features, interviews, and news updates every day at relevantmagazine.com. And make sure to follow Relevant on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest. For more great podcasts, browse the shows on the Relevant Podcast Network, which you can find at our site. And while you're there, don't miss the all-new era of Relevant Magazine. A new issue releases every other month at relevantmagazine.com.
It just poses more questions than it does answers,
Relevant Podcast Network.